The knock-on effect of ongoing load shedding is undeniable. Funeral home owners are also battling to do their jobs. We, of course, are currently on stage 4 power cuts. That is going to be eased to stage 3 from 5 tomorrow morning. Legal papers also being filed against government and the power utility to halt the coming electricity price increase and to protect infrastructure from rolling blackouts. Well, I'm joined now by Dududu Maganu from the National Funeral Practitioners Association. Mr. Maganu, thank you so much for joining us. Load shedding is not new to South Africans. Surely by now every funeral parlour has a backup power plan to keep those fridges cool.
Evening, Sally, and evening to the listeners. Yes, load shedding is not new. However, the challenge we are facing now is that it's no longer where you lose power for an hour or 2 hours. We are seeing that we are now having to use backup power generators for longer periods than originally anticipated. And that has increased the cost for undertakers to incredible levels. A number of the small businesses are now struggling to keep afloat because they're having to spend so much money on backup generators, on diesel and petrol.
Yeah, so it's that intensity that is really causing problems in your sector and, of course, as we've seen in many other sectors as well. I wonder if you could explain to us exactly how it impacts the processes that you need to follow when you move a body from someone's home or a hospital and then to a funeral parlour and onto an actual burial or cremation. What sort of problems does it create and at which point, and what are you doing about it?
Actually, it now affects all the processes. From the instance where a client needs to call you or families need to call us to inform us that there is a death in the family. You are having network problems where they cannot get hold of us or we cannot get hold of them. You are having issues with after collecting the deceased, the families would like to do death registration. You go to Home Affairs, you find that Home Affairs is also experiencing load shedding. In some areas, you might be as lucky as having to move from one area to another area to try and find the closest Home Affairs, which you can do a death registration at. But for some areas, the Home Affairs is so far that you'd either have to wait out the period, and if still load shedding is at 4 hours, that means that you cannot do the death registration on that day. You'd have to move on to the next day, and that then delays the process of preparing for the funeral, because when you are done with the death registration documentation, it needs to be processed and sent to the insurance companies so that you can file your claim. Or submit your claim for the payment of that service. And you find that the insurers are also having a challenge with power. So the 24 hours to 48 hours norm of processing a claim all of a sudden becomes up to 72 hours. And that creates, so that's basically 3 days of just trying to fix the paperwork. So this is becoming a very serious problem. And then you come to the issue of that you are finding that if particularly you are on stage 6, you are now dealing with a fridge that doesn't have power for more than 12 hours in a day. So that means your backup is now running for 12 hours. Now you are looking at extended costs, increased costs of diesel or petrol. We are urging government to come to the table and sit with the industry to look at how we can look at alternative ways of subsidizing this power or alternative ways of power. Inverters are expensive, where you find that now you are adding an extra expensive alternative to small businesses. We are also having problems with suppliers. Where we have companies that use suppliers for printing. Printers are no longer able to print at the time which is required because now they are working on load shedding schedules. They are no longer able to take up the amount of clients they would normally do because of load shedding. Therefore, they can no longer deliver to us in time, which means that affects how we now give a service to our clients. So this it seems to be having a ripple effect on all the areas of operation in the funeral industry.
I mean, you've explained it so well, just how difficult it is to run your business. It is not just the cooling of those fridges, which is obviously also a critical issue, and it's a health and safety issue. Is this all inevitably pushing up the cost of dying?
I think in a nutshell, yes. Because eventually the funeral parlours can no longer absorb this cost. They can no longer cushion this cost. And eventually this cost will have to be passed on to the consumers or to the clients in either increased service fees or increased premiums. So one way or another, this eventually will hit the pockets of the consumers. Thus, we are saying to government, intervene, come through to the table, let us negotiate, let industry unite, and discuss alternative ways of being able to deal with this load shedding, because we can see, we hear talks of that it will be with us for the next 2 years, probably 3 to 4 years. Therefore, that means that before things get bad, before we get to a situation where we have decomposing bodies or companies that are closing down because they can no longer absorb or cushion the cost, let us sit around the table, let us come up with alternative ways of being able to assist this industry before it goes down.
Have you had any situations where that has happened, where bodies have decomposed because the fridges have gone off? And how do you manage a situation like that?
We have not had a report of an incident like that, but we've heard of incidents where an area or a business was experiencing extended load shedding. And when the power came back, they had cable theft. And therefore, that meant that they would go without power for longer periods and not sure of when the cables would be restored. In that sense, in that instance, then you have to look at possibilities of moving the bodies to another mortuary facility. So those are some of just the challenges that some undertakers are experiencing, and those are things that we would like to deal with before it becomes a national crisis.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, good luck with engaging a government and trying to get assistance. You've explained so well just how it delays the entire process, affects every aspect of getting a death certificate and burying or cremating someone. And of course, that also increases costs and I would imagine prolongs the sadness for the family members who are trying to deal with so much at a time of a bereavement. Thank you for chatting to us this evening. Dududu Maganu from the National Funeral Practitioners Association.